God himself has spoken.
Mr. Reagan.
On the left, you see the North Toledo Memorial mural to George Floyd as it stood last year. Tonight, it's been reduced to rubble, blown apart by lightning last evening.
I mean, this is my favorite story of the past couple weeks. This George Floyd memorial was struck by lightning and destroyed. Okay, couple things. One, it doesn't look like this looks like a bombing. I mean, this does not look like it was struck by lightning, but apparently there were witnesses. Okay, witnesses are unreliable, but there was also some kind of radar thing that showed that the lightning actually did strike the area. And so it kind of gives credibility to this idea. And I'm gonna be honest, I was skeptical at first, but hearing about the radar evidence, I kind of believe it now. I mean, it's one of those things that you want to believe when you hear it because it's so hilarious, but you know, you're kind of skeptical. But radar evidence, okay, maybe it's real. Maybe this did happen. I mean, this is nuts. Now, okay, this is obviously a bit of a silly story. You got this George Floyd memorial obliterated by a strike of lightning. Is it newsworthy? I don't know, but it leads me into stuff that is newsworthy, and let me explain. So, first of all, naturally, there's gonna be a lot of people that the natural assumption is, okay, was this an act of God? Did God himself decide to send the message that no, we should not be celebrating George Floyd, we should not be idolizing George Floyd? And obviously within the Christian faith there is this concept of idol worship. And what's going on with George Floyd? There's all these images and altars to some degree being created all over the country for George Floyd. These memorials, they look more like altars than simple memorials. People seem to be worshiping at the altar of George Floyd. And that is of course absurd because George Floyd was a despicable criminal. You know, why would anybody be worshiping at the altar of a despicable criminal? Well, that's the world we live in now, ladies and gentlemen. We have, to some degree, sanctified, at least the Democrats, have sanctified this guy. Why? Because they want to promote a political idea. They want to promote this political idea that cops are racist and violent, even though there's no indication that Derek Chauvin was at all racist. But here's how I like to look at it. Derek Chauvin has been convicted of murder. Is Derek Chauvin a murderer? No, he is absolutely not, right? Derek Chauvin put George Floyd in a kind of a restraint that he was trained to put people in, to put criminals in, to put people that he was trying to arrest in who were trying to flee. That's what he was trained to do. If you've got a problem with that, you've got a problem with the training. You don't have a problem with Derek Chauvin. He was just following his training. Now, George Floyd had, what was it, something like 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. Now, somebody wrote me who was a pharmacist that said, well, if somebody is an avid drug user, 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system wouldn't necessarily kill him. Okay, but we know that what he was suffering from was all consistent with a fentanyl overdose, and he had other drugs in his system as well. I think he had meth in his system. So, yeah, I mean, the best defense of George Floyd not having died of a drug overdose, or the best evidence to suggest, well, maybe Derek Chauvin had something to do with the death there, the best evidence is, well, a heavy drug user might not die of a drug overdose despite having 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. Maybe he wouldn't die, and therefore Derek Chauvin must be guilty of murder. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. And so what I like to think is this was some kind of a supernatural message that says Derek Chauvin is innocent, George Floyd is not to be idolized in this way, and don't be ridiculous. That's how I like to look at it. Now, was that it, or was it just a coincidence? Was it just a bizarre freak thing, lightning strike? I don't know. You know, probably a bizarre freak thing, but it allows us to talk about these things. Should we be heroizing a criminal, a degenerate? It was not a good person. No, of course we should not. This is a bad guy. Nobody should be looking up to this guy. Nobody should be heroizing him. Nobody should be romanticizing him. He was a filthy degenerate. He was a criminal. He was a bad person. We do not need murals of George Floyd up just because people want to say that Derek Chauvin killed him, which he did not. Okay, I mean, it's just so stupid. It's just stupid. If you want to heroize a black guy, why not Thomas Sowell? Thomas Sowell is awesome. Heroize that guy. Why not heroize Martin Luther King? Oh, that's right. Martin Luther King said, judge not by the color of one's skin, but by the content of one's character. Oh, what an evil Republican he was. You know? I mean, the left has gotten so crazy. I had a phone call today from a friend who was, for many years, a Democrat. He's an actor in Hollywood, and he's gay, and he's a Mexican. I mean, he's not the kind of person that you would expect to be a conservative. And he's not really. I mean, you know, in the 90s, he would have been like, you know, full-on Democrat, you know, given the politics of the time. But now he's like, Chris, man, I think I'm actually getting to a point where I'm willing to accept the title, the label of Republican. He couldn't believe it. He's like, this is the first time in my life that I've actually thought about the term Republican and not thought those are the bad guys. I think I'm one of you now, right? I think I am that. That's what I think I am. I don't want to be a Republican. I've always hated the Republicans, but I think I'm a Republican now. That's how crazy the left has gotten. And, you know, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, all these thugs, all these, you know, criminals, all these, you know, domestic terrorists, which I think they actually are, they're heroizing and they're idolizing this guy, George Floyd. And we're moving further and further away from Judeo-Christian ethics, from the values that we should have, and we're moving, well, at least on the left, on the radical left, they're moving toward, you know, heroizing criminals, heroizing essentially the dregs of society, the people that we want our kids to avoid being like. We're romanticizing those people. And it's really not because they like George Floyd. The left doesn't give a crap about George Floyd. They really don't. They pretend to, but they don't. The only reason they want to use George Floyd, use his image, is to demonize police, demonize especially white male police officers. That's the only reason that they're doing that. Now, I want to read all about this incident, but before I do, I have to tell you something.
Now, over the past 4 years, we seldom heard the word inflation. But last month, the inflation rate in the US had the highest rise in 29 years. You heard that right, 29 years, 1992. And that's a problem for all of us, with the price of food and gas and everything else going up. But it's terrible if you're planning on retiring soon. You need to put up an inflation dam to stop inflation from wiping out the value of your savings and your investments. And it's not too late. Noble Gold specializes in retirement planning and IRAs, so their team of experts, well, they're your first stop, and they make it incredibly easy to do so. Now, this month, they are offering a 1-ounce American Eagle solid silver proof coin with every IRA or 401k that you take out. And look at this box they give you. I mean, it's so nice. It's such a beautiful little thing, and then you get this little felt coin holder, and you open this beautiful thing up, and what do you got? Oh, yeah. This is honestly one of the best ones they've sent me. They've sent me several coins over the past couple of years to present to you guys, and I love this one. I love this one. Actually, Valeria is trying to buy a case for all the coins because she loves them as much as I do. We love these things. Beautiful. I love all kinds of American imagery. I love American history. So this kind of stuff, yeah, just a little touch of history sometimes, a little touch of Americana. I love it. So they're offering these solid silver proof coins with every IRA or 401k that's taken out. Now, not many people can relax when inflation is this high, but like thousands of others, with Noble Gold, you're going to be okay. Visit the website at noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com.
All right, now let's have a look at The Hill. The Hill covered this in a beautiful article. George Floyd Memorial reportedly destroyed by lightning bolt. Photos posted to social media show a large portion of the mural in Toledo, Ohio, destroyed. This is crazy, guys. A large mural painted on the side of a brick building in Toledo, Ohio, honoring George Floyd was reduced to a heap of rubble Tuesday after it was reportedly struck by lightning. Local ABC 13 reports that witnesses told authorities that responded on the scene that they saw lightning strike the building at the site of the collapse. The news station's Doppler radar did confirm that a lightning strike hit the area prior to the mural's collapse, and the Toledo Fire and Rescue Department listed the cause as a lightning strike. So this is officially the cause of this destruction, which I didn't even know. I didn't even know lightning could do that. I mean, it's crazy what's happened to this. The side of this building just collapsed, and it's literally like right where George Floyd's face is. It's like the only part of the building that was struck. That's why it seems almost supernatural, you know? A lot of atheists are out there going, oh, don't be an idiot, don't be an idiot. I mean, come on. Even if you don't believe in anything supernatural, it's still a bit of fun, you gotta admit. All right, let's hear it. Photos posted to social media show a large portion of the mural destroyed, with fragments still remaining on the wall along its border. But some are skeptical of what caused the collapse. City building inspector Hugh Coogan told the Toledo Blade the wall appeared to crumble due to natural deterioration. It was just age. It just came away, Coogan told the news outlet. It happens to the older buildings. No, it doesn't. What are you talking about? Older buildings, just the walls just collapse randomly? No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe rarely, but like right where George Floyd was painted, that seems awfully coincidental. I mean, it was probably a combination of the age of the building and the lightning strike, but still, it seems so weird. The artist who painted the Take a Breath mural last year shortly after Floyd's death questions whether it could have been vandalism. I mean, that's what it looks like, so fair enough. When I did the mural, there was stuff on the wall that I couldn't remove, and that let me know how strong that structure was, David Ross told the Toledo Blade. The lightning thing, that's possible, but I know it didn't just fall. So this guy is saying there's no way that that fell from age. Like, he's saying that when he was painting it, he noticed that the wall was incredibly secure, like it was a very strong wall. So he's like, well, maybe it was lightning, but he obviously thinks that it was vandalism. City officials said that they're working to ensure the mural is replaced with a picture of Trump, I hope. You know what? Here's an idea. Let's replace it with a picture of Jesus. Because that's who we all should be. We should have an altar to. We should not have an altar to some criminal thug. You know, I'm all for forgiveness. I'm all for forgiving people. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, George Floyd, let's spit on his grave. I mean, come on, that's just inhumane. But to sit here and say, oh, he was this great guy, he's this amazing guy, we should make altars to him throughout the country. I mean, get real, people. There was a CNN anchor who, he was trying to quote Donald Trump, who said that George Floyd was looking down on us from heaven, which I don't know when Trump said that. That's certainly not true. So this reporter, I forget who it was, misquoted Donald Trump, and he said, George Floyd is looking down on us from prison. It was one of the best mistakes I've ever heard.
The president also saying moments ago he believes George Floyd is looking down from prison and looking down from heaven, and will love this moment.
Oh, that was great. That was amazing. I love that. That just killed me. You know, I sometimes I talk about black culture on this show, and every time I talk about black culture, I say the same thing. I say that there are some problems with black culture. And those problems are things that we're not allowed to talk about, right? We're never allowed to talk about the problems of black culture as white people. And the reason we're not allowed to talk about them is because people try to tie culture and race together inextricably. And you really can't do that. And here's why you can't do that. Because race is something you're born with. Culture is something that you can choose. I mean, maybe not 1,000 years ago you couldn't choose your culture, but you can grow up in one culture, watch some TV, listen to the radio, see some other people in real life and say, I don't really like this culture, I don't like all the values in this culture, I'm going to adopt some of the values of this other culture, I'm going to join that other culture. You can do that in America. You know, we live in a society in which you can do that. So if you embrace a certain kind of culture and you're unwilling to change the problems within that culture, that's on you, that's your choice. Culture is something that we not only can criticize, because it's not something that is an immutable characteristic, it's not something you're born with, but it's something that we need to criticize. We need to criticize it because culture is holding back certain kinds of people, especially people of certain races, you might even say. And, you know, one problem that I have with black culture, I've mentioned this many times, is I had a black friend when I was a kid who told me once that because she carried her books to school every day and she studied hard, she was ridiculed by other black people as being too white. And I often say on this show that the problem with black culture all stems from one thing, which is racism against white people. There is a massive problem within black culture of racism against white people, and it informs a lot of their cultural identity. This is too white, that's too white, you're too white. You're not black enough, they'll say, right? You're not really black, they'll say. And then a lot of these people who say you're not really black, they embrace insane ideas. You know, like this kind of like thug lifestyle, this like ghetto lifestyle. That shouldn't be what black culture is. Black culture shouldn't be a ghetto lifestyle. You should be able to make black culture whatever you want it to be. You should be able to raise black culture up to be something that is unbelievably impressive, something that people of all races, of all cultures can look at and respect and say, that's amazing. You know, I'm really impressed with those people. I was talking to somebody the other day about white people in film and how they've sort of stopped putting white people in film, and I think it's a mistake by Hollywood. You know, this is a kind of a subject I get into occasionally on the show. Nobody seems to like it, but I think it's important. And one of the reasons I think it's smart to put white people in movies is for the international market. White people are a very small percentage of the world population. One of the smallest percentages, racial groups on the planet. I mean, if you consider Africans, Asians, you know, Hispanic, Latinos, Native American, Middle Eastern people, if you consider all the different people in the world and you compare that to the white population. The white population is very small, but the white population has been able to accomplish an incredible amount. They've been able to accomplish so much that I think white culture and white people are fascinating to people who are not us, right? I mean, I think that white culture and white people aren't really fascinating to white people, right? You know, I don't look at my own race and I go, oh, my race is fascinating, right? But the thing is, if you're Chinese and you live in China, right? Or you're a Middle Eastern guy living in the Middle East, or you're like a native Argentinian living in Argentina, or you are a black African living in Ethiopia, or something like that. Certainly, these people are going to consider white Americans or white Europeans or white Australians, they're going to consider them fascinating. They're going to consider their culture fascinating. They're going to consider their cultural achievements fascinating. So I do think, and they really nailed this in the 80s. Hollywood nailed this in the 80s. 80s was all about being cool, right? What's the coolest thing? Who are the coolest people, right? So they try to get these actors that were cool, and they try to get music that's cool, and they try to get visuals that are cool, and they make cool movies. And Hollywood's really lost the plot when it comes to really defining what is cool, or seeking out what is cool in reality, and then depicting that on film. They've really lost any kind of ability to assess that and to produce that in films. And one of the things that I think most of the world thinks is cool is, bizarrely, white people. Just white people are cool in the minds of people all over the world, especially white Americans. America is, at least it used to be, and I think to some degree it still is, considered to be the coolest country. And so if you're getting a white American guy to star in a movie, the rest of the world's going to watch that movie. They're going to go, oh yeah, I want to see that. It's a Hollywood film with Hollywood actors. You know, they're going to show us some cool stuff. You know, and they don't necessarily have to be white people. I mean, I think people think Will Smith's cool. People think Dwayne Johnson is cool. You know, there's a lot of people who aren't white, but are still, you know, your sort of classic American guy. And you can put those guys in movies, but this whole idea of let's move away from the white American male, the straight white American guy, and put in some like black lesbians, the rest of the world looks at those black lesbians and goes, not interested, change the channel, right? And these films don't do well internationally. These TV shows don't do well internationally because nobody internationally cares about that stuff. And, you know, and the left is really shifting into this world of we gotta hate white guys. We gotta hate Americanness. We've gotta hate heterosexuality. You know, anything that is considered traditional values is traditionally considered normal or even cool in America. We've got to push away from that, and we've got to create this new thing and tell people it's cool. And we're Hollywood and we can do that. And well, no, you can't. No, you can't. And this is all part of this progressive idea of redefining our values, right? We're redefining our values. We're no longer a country of traditional Judeo-Christian values from the European tradition. We're now a country who respects people like George Floyd, you know, guys who made crappy amateur porn videos and put a gun to a pregnant woman's stomach. These are the kind of people that we want to admire in our society. Forget God, forget Christianity, forget the European culture that created this country and created basically everything that you use and see. We want to celebrate people like George Floyd. You know, forget people who are fit, forget people who are athletic. We want to celebrate obesity. Look, I have obese people in my family. I don't have any disrespect for obese people. I think, you know, some people struggle with health issues and stuff like that. And to me, what matters most is what's in your heart, right? But you don't celebrate poor health. That's ridiculous. And you don't celebrate the ugliness of the world. You celebrate the beauty of the world. You don't celebrate people who lack ethics and who are selfish and who are horrible and who hurt people. You celebrate people who have integrity and dignity and strive to be good people. You want to have a society that appreciates morality and goodness, not evil and debauchery and villainy and people with sinister motives. Somebody wanted me to use the word sinister the other day. They missed me using that, so I'll throw that in there. Yeah, our society's changing, guys, at least from the point of view of the extreme left. And but here's the good news. Here's the good news. I don't think Americans are buying it. I don't even think Democrats are buying it. I think there are some hardcore Democrats that want to say, no, the Democrats are still the good guys, but that's just because they don't want to admit that they're wrong. But I don't think that most Democrat voters are willing to embrace critical race theory. I don't think most Democrat voters are willing to embrace this idea of, that George Floyd was actually a hero. I think most Democrats who disagree with this stuff, they just stay silent. They don't speak up. But they definitely don't believe it. And this is evidenced by my good friend, the gay Mexican actor in Hollywood, who has said to me, I think I'm ready to call myself a Republican. To me, that's amazing. The most effective advocates that we have today in America for conservative values are Democrats. Democrats are currently pushing other Democrats out of their own party. They're so crazy, they're actually creating new conservatives, new Republicans out of their own party because they are so radical, they're so crazy, they are so unethical. It's fantastic. Anyway, be sure to check out my other show, Mr. Pagan. It's all comedy. If you don't like my comedy, if you don't think I'm funny, okay, don't subscribe, but subscribe anyway, just to support me, just to support that other channel, because when I get removed from YouTube as Mr. Reagan, I'm going to need another platform. That's going to be the other platform. But that's a comedy platform exclusively. I don't want to put anything that is serious on there, although through comedy you can shift the culture, certainly, and you can get serious messages across. I want to do that through that channel, but it is strictly a comedy channel. It's not going to be a news channel in the way this one is. But I will keep Mr. Reagan going for as long as I can. I will try to build it up, and I will try to fight the censorship that's happening now. So just remember, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant, it's just they know so much that is not so. Good night.
Mr. President, in talking about the continuing recession tonight, you have blamed mistakes of the past, and you have blamed the Congress. Does any of the blame belong to you?
Yes, because for many years I was a Democrat.
But does any of
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.